they got girls there where you will never be found. Well, my own, sitting in the kitchen with the lights on, surely ain't a missing, caught up in a new world. You will never be found. All this time will make it easier on you. When you got all the world, but you cannot make it bend. Well, my girl has got all the know-how of the sad world. She dreams in color, she gets up with a new love. She will never be found.
Now, after my SSL bus compressor, I like to usually put, especially on like rock stuff like this, I like to put something a little bit more like tapey, saturaty type shit. So usually it's the Ampex AATR 102 from Universal Audio. I like this one a lot. There's a thing over here that you need to be paying attention to, just for the record. Is like there is a sync button and a repro button, and it's different sounds. I think people don't understand that these are like different things. The sync button, when you're playing off the sync button, you're actually hearing the track, right? It's the repro or the repro button, the sync button, and I don't remember. Bro, I'm fucking a little bit lit right now. Anyway, goddammit. So I just spilt on my keyboard, so hopefully that doesn't ruin things for us. All right, so I put this guy on. I hit the sync button.
Sitting in a high chair, you will never be found. I see they got girls there, but you will never be found. Well, my own, sitting in the kitchen with the lights on, surely ain't a missing, caught up in a new world. You will never be found. All this time will make it easier on you. When you got all the world, but you can't.
All right. So now it's time to go back. I think I'm kind of in a good place for like what my master is almost like the tone of it's going to be. There's some fine tuning stuff. For example, there's a hi-hat in some places that sounds insanely loud. I think it's probably the overheads and it's probably the drums getting a little bit pushed too hard. So I'm going to go and I'm going to find that and I'm going to address that. And I think this is something that's really important. A lot of times, you're going to find out that while you're working on something like that, where I came in here and this was like this, right? You did that. You did that somewhere before, and you don't want to admit it, right? You don't want to admit that something you did before now doesn't sound good. But it's like you can't really predict the end of where all these sounds are going to sound once you start slamming them with compression, because like I did this for a very purposeful reason. Like this DBX 160, I slammed on there. I remember doing it, like it's double compressed on here, so I'm pushing these overs for a reason. I'm making them dirty, but now this thing that I did forever ago before there was any compression on the master bus is now not even just like wrong, it's extra wrong. I need to take it away in that spot. But like I think our like stupid brains make us want to forget that, like, oh, I did that, so like I don't want to undo it, you know, like that means I was wrong. Like, fine, dude, I'm wrong all the time whenever I start out. Sometimes you got to wait till the end to see where it all comes together, and you realize like, oh, I'm screwing this part up. This is all because I'm compressing the hell out of these overs, and that frequency now that used to be something I needed to stick out is sticking out too much. So you just got to be real with yourself and go back and acknowledge it and be like, oh yeah, I fucked that one up, you know, and go back.
Sitting in a high chair, you will never be found. I see they got girls there where you will never be found. Well, my own, sitting in the kitchen with the lights on, surely ain't a missing, caught up in a new world. You will never be found. All this time will make it easier on you. Sitting in a high chair, you will never be found. I see they got girls there where you will never be found. Well, my own, sitting in the kitchen with the lights on, surely ain't a missing, caught up in a new world. You will never be found.
All right, in order to get my vocal to sit properly in the mix where I wanted it, I felt like what I needed was for the like presence area of the vocal to be pushed a little bit more, so that 6K, 5K like area up needed a little bit more, right? And so over here, right here, it looks like I did 5,500. I also put a little bit more of that mud out in that 200, 300 region, right? I'm instinctually reaching for this. I'm never really thinking about what frequency I'm actually hitting. I'm only thinking about making it sound better, right? But I've just, at this point in my career, greasy rant coming.
See they got girls there.
At this point in my life, I am incapable of doing this shit all over. Like, what is this? Why are people doing this? Somebody tell, like, every now and then, sure. Every now and then, I'm like, yeah, hey, I just made some, I'll leave this on here. I won't notice the difference. Like, you didn't, like, you're doing some obscure bullshit and you need to stop doing it. Like, it's wrong and you should feel wrong because it's stupid. You're not really getting like some real fine tuning out of this. You're just wasting a ton of time. Right? No one in the entire world is going to be like, oh man, yeah, he really hit with that 2,714.3 hertz move, you know, that at 1.3 minus 1.3, no one is gonna fucking make any, that's not making the difference. Very rarely. When people are like, oh, but I'm just taking a little bit of like, very rarely are you making any difference that matters to anybody. This is just you being you, tweaking on something that doesn't need to be tweaked on for 17 hours. Trust me. I've been there. I've done it. I spent way too much time, you know? I spent way too much time tweaking on some shit. And then I was like, man, I don't need any of these. Like, none of these are making any difference in my life. I'm getting rid of all of them. It's like I don't this. Come on, did I need this? I didn't need this. It wasn't doing that much there. So yeah. So, but I will. Like that's a pretty reasonable thing. But back to the point of all this, pushing this right here, pushing this 5,500 hertz, that caused me to have a little bit of sibilance that I didn't like. So I pulled up this Pro DS. One of the reasons I like the FabFilter Pro DS, I swear to God, it's the best de-esser that I don't have to fuck with, I put it up and I push it a couple of times, like do 2 button moves. I turn the threshold up a little bit and I turn the range down a little bit so it takes more. That's it. I did two things and I was happy with the way it sounded. That is the best plugin you can ever have.
I see they got girls there where you will never be found. Well, my own, sitting in the kitchen with the lights on, surely ain't a missing, caught up in a new world. You will never be found. All this time will make it easier on you. When you got all the world, but you cannot make it big. Well, my girl has got all the know-how of a sad world.
Okay, all right. Something that I'm noticing, I'm feeling like it is really there, right? I think I am automation away from pretty much being where I would be basically almost done with this mix. Now, I would put a little bit more time in, and the type of time that I put in would be the most boring thing to watch because it would be like me literally just nonstop like tweaking on one part for like 45 minutes for like the tiniest little gain and adventure. But I do think that that's the time to do those things, is like the end. At the very end when you're like, cool, if I just do this little move, it'll make this whole thing sound amazing. But we'll get there, right? So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on one of my favorite plugins, the Parallel Particles. If you don't know this, and if you don't know Andrew Scheps, like obviously it's probably less impressive, but Andrew Scheps gets me when it comes to this plugin, right? This motherfucker gets me like no one has ever gotten me with this plugin. Look how simple this plugin is. Air, Byte, Thick, Sub. Now, whatever. The names of things, it's so hard to put a name to things, but I guess what he's done is kind of what I did. And like this thing is just a parallel saturation thing for all of these spaces. The air band is up top, Thick, Byte, and then Sub, and then you can change the frequency of the sub. And I try and usually like hone in on the song-to-song basis if I'm going to use it all. A lot of times I don't use this. A lot of times it's some air on top and maybe a little bit of bite. But this is a dangerous plugin, and this is why I don't recommend this to people. I don't recommend plugins like this to people. Because this plugin is a bit of one of those, man, everything sounds better. What do you mean? So you just keep adding and adding and adding, but you fucked up. This is a nice little taste plugin. You do not put this plugin on and then oh, is the live down? The live is down? No, live's not bad. Video is stuttering every 5 to 7 seconds. Algorithm in that thing is just fire. Fuck, man. I swear to God, I don't give a shit anymore. Life be like that. Watch the replay. We'll put up a fucking replay. Anyway, so this is the worst Mixed Monday ever! It's not the worst. There's been worse. I was like real depressed on one, man. I was just like, are you sure it's not your internet that's stuttering? I mean, I'd be taking fucking advice from the comments every now and then I find out it's just you guys fucking have bad internet and shit. But whatever. Anyway, this Parallel Particles is one of the best plugins that for a master bus. Oh my God. All right. So I'm gonna tweak with a couple things, right? And this is what I can say, right? Be careful with plugins like this. Be careful with plugins like this. It is so easy to add too much. It is literally, to me, like I have to check myself all the time because you're going to keep thinking, oh, this is better. And then all of a sudden you're going to listen to it. You're like, what the fuck did I do at my song? Right? So here, we're going to listen to it.
Sitting in a high chair, you will never be found.
I was literally able to turn this bite button all the way up, and I'm like, oh, it sounds better. It sounds better the whole way.
Sitting in a high chair, you will never be found.
But no, it doesn't. It just sounds louder, right? Like you're tricking yourself and letting yourself believe it, but it doesn't. It just sounds louder.
Sitting in a high chair, you will never be found. I see they got girls there where you will never be found.
Now listen to how different this sounds. Like I just made these tiny little moves with this thing, but the difference in this, I'm going to turn this on and off.
Sitting in a high chair, you will never be found. Sitting in a high chair, you will never be found. I see they got girls there with you.
Just that little difference. The guitars come so close, into your face. It comes so close into your face. The vocals really get a nice presence to it. Everything is just so much cleaner and feels so much better. And I just made these tiny little moves over here, right? But it's so easy. I'm telling you, even I can tell right now, I probably went a little overboard with the air. It's like, you got to remember, on the master chain, you are doing the most, like, amplification, right? It's like this is the most amplification. You're limiting all this stuff. So, and it's like anything you do here, it's like doing it to every single channel across the board, right? Hold on. Yeah, all right. Just had to tell people to shut the fuck up for a second. Oh my God. I'm trying to do Mix Monday over here, guys. Mix Monday. Not hear goddamn conversations in a goddamn room. Trying to do Mix Monday for y'all. Anyway, all right, Mix Monday. So everything that you do on this master is amplified times like imagine doing this to every single track. That's what you're essentially doing. So it's like it's bigger implications than just, throwing the shit on.
You will never be found. I see they got girls there where you will never be found. Well, my own, sitting in the kitchen with the light.
We are in a very important place now because this is automation time. This is the time, this is the place, this is where automation should start happening. Everything in my entire chain right now sounds great. Like I love the way everything sounds, but I can also tell that it is not sitting in the right place for the whole song. Like, and this is the important thing that you have to start thinking about at this point is like, am I changing something because it's too loud in a single place and not across the whole mix? The acoustic guitars in the verse are too loud, but they're not too loud in the choruses and in the intros. So I'm going to go options, set up peripherals because I bet you it's not on. Machine control enable. MIDI controllers. Okay. I should have done something. Seemingly. There we go. All right, we're online. All right. I am going to now start automating across this track. What I'm going to be doing during this process right here is I am going to take this acoustic guitar and I'm going to move it out of the place of the vocals, but let it sit kind of where it was at whenever the vocals aren't playing, but in such a subtle way that you're not supposed to really notice that it's happening. All right. For those of you over here, I'm using the fader port to automate. I like the fader port 8. It's probably one of the most useful things. It's just what I want. It's just like exactly the amount of stuff that I want and none of the bullshit. So, all right. If you watch on my screen, you'll see what I'm going to do. I put it in touch mode and I'm just going to hit play and go.
Sitting in a high chair, you will never be found. I see they got girls there where you will never be found. Well, my own, sitting in the kitchen with the lights on. Surely ain't a missing, caught up in a new world. You will never be found. All this time will make it easier on you. When you got all the world, but you cannot make it bend. Well, my girl has got all the know-how of the sad world. She dreams in color, she gets up with a new love.
Now, I'm not going to automate the entire song because that would take forever for y'all to watch and it would waste a lot of time. But I'm going to do this first verse and chorus and pre and everything so you guys can see what I do. But basically, as you saw, I was taking it out of the way of the vocal. And then as soon as the vocal was back in, or as soon as the vocal was out, I gave it a little bit more space. Anytime that there was something cool going on, like a build, I always build with everything in the build because that's what the band is going to do, right? And one of the things that we don't think about is compression is taking away a bit of the performance, right? That is the problem with the compression situation, is that like anytime you compress, you're going to lose some of the performance, but you're going to get a more even performance, which means we have to build some of the performance back in with automation. That's what the point of automation should be, right? Is you're building back in the feel of a performance after kind of taking it a little bit away, right? It's a bit like making a Marine. We got to break them down so we can build them back up in the image that we want. That's kind of what we're doing with compression, is we're breaking down the performance so that we can rebuild it in the way that we want with automation. So it's like even, it's doing exactly what we want. Because the truth is, your guitarist just really doesn't give a shit about stepping all over your fucking vocals. All right? So I'm going to do this with all of the acoustic guitars real quick, or at least these two, because these are like the main ones, right? And I'm going to feel out. Now, I'm not going to do them. I could, right? I could just copy and paste this. Right? Oops. But I don't want to. I want this to be its own feel as well. So I'm going to go through and create my own performance again and my own automation so that it still feels like a second guitar. That's the important part, is like this doesn't need to step on the other guitar, but it can feel like, here's a little bit more, here's a little bit less. And so I'm going to tease this one in and out of the other one.
Sitting in a high chair, you will never be. Sitting in a high chair, you will never be found. I see they got girls there where you will never be found. Well, my own, sitting in the kitchen with the lights on. Surely ain't a missing, caught up in a new world. You will never be found. time will make it easier on you. When you got all the world, but you cannot make it bend. Well, my girl has got all the know-how of the sad world.
All right, so what's important about using automation, right? We trick our listeners into paying attention with automation. We trick them into hearing a thing for just a second and thinking, I've been hearing that guitar the whole time. Of course I have. It pokes its head out for just a second for people to go, oh, there it is. Like, yeah, the guitar, of course it's there. Of course the acoustic guitar's been there the entire time. They don't know they haven't been listening to it. That's not on their brain. We're making them, as engineers, as mixers, we're making them think about that for a second. I don't want them to ever lose that this is an acoustic guitar song at its core. And so we're going to continue to have that going so that we can push it in their brains that, like, oh, acoustic guitar. Because sometimes I do want that acoustic guitar to be too loud for just a second. I'm not going to leave it too loud for long. I'm going to pull it back down. I just want it for a second for you to remember, oh, right, I'm listening. There's acoustic guitar there, right? All right. This electric guitar is going to be a very crucial thing to automate across the verse. This electric guitar is the down the middle electric guitar that happens throughout the song.
Sitting in a high chair, you will never be found. They got girls.
We basically want this electric guitar to almost never really be heard, but always be on the verge of being heard, right? It's the thickness, it's the bottom of this whole mess. We want this to always be on the verge of being heard, but never being heard, right? So I'm going to just automate this across to just barely peek out every now and then. You're going to think only for a second, you're going to think like, oh, am I hearing an electric guitar underneath everything? But not really. You're going to focus more on those acoustics.
Sitting in a high chair, you will never be found. I see the guy sitting in a high chair, you will never be found. They got girls there where you will never be found. Well, my own, sitting in the kitchen with the lights on. Surely ain't a missing, caught up in a new world. You will never be found. All this time will make.
Now, I'm going to back up just a second because I know that I'm getting acoustic or electric guitars coming in here on this thing, and I'm going to automate those up and make them be a little bit more intense in this spot. So I'm going to push it here to lead off.
You will never be found. All this time will.
Now I'm going to go back one track and automate the master for all these guitars and push them really in this pre-chorus and bring them back down a little bit for the chorus.
All this time will make it easier on you. When you got all the world, but you cannot make it bend. Well, my girl has got all the know-how of the sad world. She dreams in color, she gets up with a new love. She will never be found.
Now, the intent of bringing up these chorus guitars just a little bit from where it's going to be like dropping, we want the verse or the pre-chorus and the chorus to lift, right? Now, in this situation, I'm kind of jumping back and forth between what's doing what, but I gave a little bit of the acoustic guitar in the pre-chorus, but I really wanted those electric guitars to do a lot of legwork in the pre-chorus. So I pushed those a good amount. Now, one of my favorite things, and I wish there was more of this throughout the whole thing, is putting organ in songs. And might be obvious considering that I have most recently just gotten an organ and fixed it and put it in my live room, and I love it. But I'm going to do real quick a little automation on this organ, and it's specifically